Brenda turned off the engine of her luxury car, a sleek silver Mercedes-Benz, and adjusted her sunglasses before stepping out. The day was bright and bustling, as usual, in front of her cafe, Café Kent. The establishment, proudly displaying 2 floors of pure elegance, had become a landmark in the city, attracting everyone from business executives in morning meetings to celebrities seeking a casual yet sophisticated refuge. As she walked towards the main entrance, the sound of her high heels echoed against the stone pavement. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in the large glass windows that adorned the facade, and a familiar sense of pride washed over her. Brenda had built this business from scratch, transforming a dream into a dazzling reality now constantly featured in reports and praised widely. It was then that a hesitant voice interrupted her thoughts. Brenda turned to see a young woman standing before her. The woman's hair was slightly disheveled, and although her clothes were clean, they seemed worn, hinting at struggles. "Excuse me, sorry to bother you. My name is Fernanda. I was wondering if there are any job vacancies here at the cafe." "I really need a job," said Fernanda, her voice attempting to mask her desperation. Brenda assessed the woman for a moment. Normally, all hiring was handled by the human resources manager, not directly by her. However, something about Fernanda's sincerity made Brenda pause to listen. "Unfortunately, we don't have any vacancies at the moment," Brenda replied, noticing the immediate disappointment that darkened Fernanda's expression. "But I can take your resume." "Do you work here?" Fernanda asked, a slight embarrassment coloring her words. Brenda smiled, noting the confusion. "I am the owner. My name is Brenda." Fernanda's eyes widened for a second, but she quickly composed herself. "Oh, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Thank you very much." "You're welcome, Fernanda. Good luck," Brenda responded before turning to enter the cafe. As she walked towards the white marble counter, she moved among the regular patrons who greeted her with nods and smiles. She returned their gestures, but her mind was elsewhere. Fernanda, with her simplicity and direct approach, had left an impression. Brenda understood well the struggle of starting from the bottom, fighting to be recognized and heard. When she reached her office on the 2nd floor, she sat behind her large mahogany desk and examined Fernanda's resume. It wasn't the most impressive she had seen, but the young woman's initiative and the determination in her eyes were qualities that couldn't be captured on paper. Brenda picked up the phone and called Clara, her general manager. "Clara, it's Brenda. I'm sending a resume to you. It's from a young woman who was here today, Fernanda. We don't have any vacancies now, but I'd like you to take a look. Maybe we can think of something for the near future. I've always valued initiative, and she seems to have plenty." After hanging up, Brenda allowed herself a moment of reflection. She knew the business world was relentless, but she also firmly believed in the importance of offering opportunities. Who knows? Perhaps Fernanda could be one of those success stories that start with a simple act of bravery and a direct approach. After all, that's how many great journeys begin. Upstairs, in the luxurious Café Kent, Brenda found her son Samuel, who was focused on organizing papers and spreadsheets scattered across the large conference table. "Samuel, something interesting happened downstairs," Brenda began. "Sitting in one of the chairs around the table, a young woman named Fernanda approached me looking for a job. She seems to really need an opportunity." Samuel frowned, clearly concerned about the financial implications. "Mom, we've talked about this. We're at full capacity. Hiring someone else now is something we simply can't afford." Brenda knew that the establishment was operating at maximum staff capacity, but she also knew that Samuel's comment about not being able to afford another salary was an exaggeration. She decided not to prolong the discussion with him at that moment, opting instead to personally check the situation. Brenda walked downstairs again and strolled through the cafe, observing every detail and each employee in action. The place, with its constant hustle and bustle, seemed to operate like a well-oiled machine, but she knew there was always room for improvement. As she entered the kitchen, the sound of running water and the clinking of dishes and cutlery filled the air. A young employee, whom Brenda recognized as Lucas, was standing by the sink. Struggling against a mountain of dirty dishes, Lucas noticed Brenda's presence. He quickly dried his hands and greeted her respectfully. "Brenda, can I help you with something?" he asked, visibly exhausted. Lucas, I was thinking, how do you manage with all these dishes? It seems like the work never ends, Brenda commented, observing the seemingly endless pile. Yes, it's been quite tough. I rarely get a break, and the dishes just keep coming, Lucas replied with a tired smile. Really, some extra help here would be a blessing, he confessed. That was all Brenda needed to hear. Determined, she took out her phone and called Clara, the manager who was always well informed about the cafe's operational details. Clara, it's Brenda. I've found a role we need to fill immediately. We need someone to help in the kitchen, especially with washing dishes. Lucas is overwhelmed, Brenda explained with clarity and authority. Understood, Brenda. Do you have someone in mind? Clara asked, always ready to act. Yes, a young woman named Fernanda. She came in today looking for an opportunity. Can you arrange everything to hire her? I think she will be an excellent addition to our team, Brenda instructed. Perfect. I'll take care of it right away, Clara replied before hanging up. Brenda felt a quiet satisfaction in making the decision. Despite Samuel's concerns, she knew she had done the right thing for both her business and a young woman in need of an opportunity. As she left the kitchen, Brenda walked through the bustling cafe, observing the flow of customers and employees, reflecting on how each person there had a story and how small actions could make a significant impact in someone's life. It was about more than just business. It was about making a difference. The next day, Brenda arrived very early at Café Kent, taking advantage of the calm dawn to prepare for the day. The establishment was still closed to the public, and the street was quiet with only the soft sound of cars in the distance. However, this calm was interrupted when she saw a figure eagerly waiting at the entrance. It was Fernanda, the new hire. Upon noticing Brenda's arrival, Fernanda quickly approached with a shy but sincere smile. Good morning. I arrived a bit early. I didn't want to be late on my first day, she said. Impressed by the young woman's punctuality, Brenda smiled back. That's excellent, Fernanda. Let's go inside. I'll show you everything you need to know. They entered the cafe, and Brenda led Fernanda directly to the kitchen, where a pile of dirty dishes was already waiting. Without hesitation, Fernanda put on an apron and started washing the dishes with remarkable efficiency. In just half an hour, she had finished the initial pile. Brenda, who had stepped away to handle some preparations for the day's opening, returned to see the sink already clean and organized. You finished everything? She asked, clearly impressed. Yes, I tried to be as quick as possible, Fernanda replied, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. Did you have breakfast? You arrived very early, Brenda asked, concerned. Oh, no, I didn't have time, Fernanda admitted, somewhat embarrassed. Brenda immediately asked one of the employees who was already in the kitchen preparing ingredients for breakfast. Carlos, can you prepare something for Fernanda to eat? She needs something nutritious to start the day right. In moments, Carlos began preparing a dish. Fernanda, visibly moved by Brenda's consideration, said, Thank you. This means a lot to me, in a low and sincere voice. You're welcome, Fernanda. I want everyone here to feel at home and have the energy for the day, Brenda replied. And with that, the two women shared a moment of mutual understanding. As the hours passed, the place began to fill with customers, and the pace in the kitchen intensified. Samuel arrived mid-morning and observed the new employee working diligently. Despite Fernanda's efficiency, he shook his head in disapproval, a gesture that did not go unnoticed by Brenda. Samuel approached Brenda and whispered, Mom, you're very kind-hearted. Sometimes I think that might be a problem. Brenda looked at her son, a slight smile playing on her lips. Maybe, Samuel, but it's that kindness that makes Café Kent more than just a cafe. It's what makes us a community. As the day went on, Brenda could clearly see the positive effects of her decision. The kitchen was more organized. The dishes were continually clean and ready for use, and the employees, including Lucas, felt less overwhelmed than usual. Observing all this, Brenda felt reassured in her choice. Fernanda's integration not only lightened the workload, but also brought a new spirit of cooperation and efficiency. Café Kent was more than just a workplace. It was an environment where people supported each other and grew together. At the end of the day, that was the true measure of success. The months at the cafe flew by quickly since Fernanda was hired. Each passing day, She proved to be more than just a dedicated employee. She stood out as truly exemplary. Her transition from dishwasher to waitress was so smooth it seemed almost natural. Always the first to arrive and one of the last to leave, her commitment and quality of work did not go unnoticed. Brenda, always attentive to her team's development, watched with pride as Fernanda grew, demonstrating a special talent for customer service and bringing a positive energy that seemed to brighten the atmosphere. It was no surprise that she quickly became an essential part of the cafe's dynamic. One quiet afternoon, Samuel, co-administrator of the cafe, approached Brenda with a worried look on his face. "Mom, we need to talk. We have a problem with the cash register. One of the employees was let go for not performing his duties properly, and we need someone to fill that position as soon as possible." Brenda, already thinking of possible solutions, said, "I'll talk to Clara right away," referring to the general manager. Clara, always efficient, informed Brenda that she had just hired a new employee for the waitress position that same day. However, Brenda already had another solution in mind, one that could solve two problems at once. She found Fernanda organizing the dessert counter, her apron impeccably clean and her smile ever present. "Fernanda, I have a new opportunity for you if you're interested," Brenda began, her tone serene but encouraging. "How would you feel about taking on the cash register? Your salary would remain the same, but it's a position that demands a lot of responsibility." Fernanda looked surprised, but her response was quick and confident. "Of course, Brenda. I'm ready for the challenge." The transition was swift. The next day, Fernanda was already training for her new role at the cash register, adapting quickly to the new responsibilities. She seemed to have a natural ability for handling transactions and interacting with customers in this new capacity. However, over time, Brenda began to notice signs of fatigue in Fernanda, particularly the deepening circles under her eyes. Concerned, Brenda approached her during a moment of calm. "Fernanda, is everything all right? You really seem tired," Brenda asked gently. Fernanda hesitated briefly before responding, "Yes, everything is fine. It's just that I started my first semester of business school. It's been a bit tough balancing studies and work, but I can handle it." Brenda listened attentively, feeling a mix of concern and admiration. "You're incredible, Fernanda. If you need anything or even need to adjust your hours, please let me know. We want to support you in the best way possible," she said. Fernanda thanked her with a tired smile, moved by Brenda's genuine concern. In turn, Brenda felt an immense, almost maternal pride in Fernanda's determination. Without a doubt, she had become one of the cafe's most valuable employees. Though Brenda never showed favoritism, it was undeniable that Fernanda held a special place in her heart and in the dynamics of the cafe. On a quiet evening, as Brenda was relaxing at home, her phone rang abruptly, breaking the silence. It was Clara, the manager of Cafe Kent, with an urgent tone. "Brenda, I've sent some reports to your email. Please look at them as soon as possible. There's something very wrong with the cafe's accounts," she said, worried. Brenda quickly opened her laptop and accessed her email, her heart beating a little faster as she clicked on the attached financial reports. The numbers that appeared on the screen were alarming. There was a significant deficit that seemed inexplicable, especially considering that the customer flow was stronger than ever. Calling Clara back, Brenda tried to maintain her composure. "Clara, what do you think is happening? This doesn't make any sense." Clara, choosing her words carefully, began, "The only logical explanation is that someone is siphoning money from the register, perhaps transferring it to an account that doesn't belong to the company." Brenda frowned. "But how? Most of our transactions are by credit card." "Yes, but something is still happening. Maybe we should monitor the employees who handle the register more closely," Clara suggested before hanging up. After the call, Brenda sat in deep thought. Fernanda was the person most frequently operating the register. Brenda knew her story, her character, and trusted her implicitly. Was she wrong? Perhaps it was a hasty judgment, but doubt began to gnaw at her certainty. In the following days, Brenda made more frequent visits to the cafe, discreetly observing activities at the register. Fernanda continued her work with the same efficiency and cordiality as always. Nothing in her behavior indicated anything suspicious, She handled transactions with the skill and honesty Brenda had witnessed since the day she was hired. However, the problem with the reports persisted, and it was clear someone was committing a crime. Determined to investigate further, Brenda installed additional cameras focused on the register and reviewed the closing and accounting processes. One afternoon, she called Fernanda for a private conversation in her office, not to accuse her, but to perhaps understand the situation better. "Fernanda, how do you feel about your work here?" Brenda began, wanting to gauge Fernanda's satisfaction. "I'm very happy, Brenda. I feel like I learn more every day," Fernanda replied, clearly unaware of the broader context of the question. "Is there anything at the register that seems different or unusual to you? Any discrepancies or anything that doesn't make sense?" Brenda continued, probing delicately. Fernanda thought for a moment before responding, "No, nothing that I've noticed. Everything seems normal, and I follow the guidelines I was given from the first day." On a restless early morning, unable to sleep and worried about the cafe's finances, Brenda decided to act. She got up, dressed quickly, and drove to Café Kent, her cafe that was facing inexplicable financial problems. Arriving at the place, the silence of the night only amplified the gravity of the situation. She unlocked the door, entered, and went straight to the office where she accessed the security system. Brenda sat in front of the screens and meticulously reviewed the security footage. The hours ticked by as she searched for any clue that could explain the deficit in the accounts. After long hours of observation, a detail caught her attention. Fernanda, the employee Brenda valued so much, had a peculiar behavior at a specific time. Fernanda consistently disappeared from the camera's view for a few minutes. Additionally, her university backpack, which came in nearly empty, left visibly fuller at the end of the day. Distrustful, Brenda spent the night in the cafe. When the day began and she saw Fernanda arrive, she greeted her normally, hiding her suspicions and concerns. Brenda knew she needed concrete evidence before making any accusations. The day passed slowly as Brenda observed Fernanda, looking for discrepancies or behaviors that might confirm her suspicions. However, nothing substantial emerged during the cafe's operating hours. Almost at the end of the day, with the cafe about to close, Brenda received a call from Clara. Clara's voice was filled with sadness as she revealed the source of the problem. "Brenda, we discovered who is siphoning the money. It was Fernanda," she said, visibly shocked. Clara explained that there was irrefutable evidence that some credit card machines were configured to transfer money directly to Fernanda Moreira's account. Brenda felt a chill upon hearing Fernanda's name associated with fraud. She thanked Clara for the investigation and hung up, her mind processing the betrayal. Watching Fernanda prepare to leave with her full backpack, Brenda felt deeply betrayed. She had taken Fernanda in and given her opportunities to grow within the company, and now that trust had been shattered, Brenda approached Fernanda, still uncertain about how to confront the situation. She needed to resolve it, but each step felt heavy with the disappointment and sadness she felt for being betrayed by someone she considered not just an exemplary employee but almost like family. Fernanda, walking briskly toward the distant bus stop, was unaware of Brenda's heavy heart. Brenda watched the scene through the large glass windows of the cafe. The suspicion burning in her heart weighed more than the evidence she had, but seeing Fernanda walk away, Brenda saw an opportunity to confront the situation once and for all. She hurriedly left the cafe and called out to Fernanda before she could get too far. "Fernanda, can I give you a ride to the university?" Brenda offered, trying to keep her voice neutral. "No need, Brenda. I can take the bus," Fernanda replied. Fernanda quickly became visibly uncomfortable with the offer. However, Brenda insisted, her voice carrying a tone of authority mixed with a trace of irritation she couldn't quite hide. "Get in the car," she commanded. Fernanda hesitated, but the firmness in Brenda's voice left no room for refusal. Reluctantly, she got into the car, and they drove toward the university in tense silence. During the drive, Brenda noticed that Fernanda was visibly nervous, constantly fidgeting with her hands and avoiding eye contact. Upon arriving at the university, they found the gates closed. "I didn't know it would be closed today," Fernanda said quickly, a shadow of panic crossing her face. Brenda raised an eyebrow, finding the situation increasingly suspicious. No worries, I'll take you home, she said before Fernanda could protest again. Fernanda tried to decline the offer once more, but Brenda was not willing to back down. Reluctantly, Fernanda gave her address, and they continued the journey, wrapped in an even denser silence than before. Upon arriving at Fernanda's home, Brenda was surprised by the simplicity and slightly deteriorated state of the small house. Both women got out of the car and Brenda, acting more on impulse than courtesy, grabbed Fernanda's backpack. Let me help you with this, Brenda said, more as an excuse to investigate the contents of the bag than out of genuine intention to help. Fernanda, noticing Brenda's underlying intention, became even more nervous and gently tried to retrieve her backpack. But Brenda held on. What are you hiding, Fernanda? Brenda's voice was laden with suspicion. Before Fernanda could respond, Brenda opened the backpack and looked inside. What she saw left her stunned, but not for the reasons she had expected. There was no money or incriminating documents, just food, leftovers from the cafe that Fernanda had taken. For a moment, Brenda was speechless, the weight of her unjust suspicions hitting her like a cold wave. Seeing Brenda's surprise, Fernanda spoke in a low, trembling voice. I was just taking some leftovers home. I didn't think it would be a problem. I'm sorry if this isn't allowed. Brenda, still holding the open backpack, felt a mix of relief and guilt. She had imagined a whole scenario of betrayal where there was nothing but need in Fernanda's attempt to make do with what she had. The silence that followed was heavy, with Brenda processing the situation and Fernanda clearly embarrassed and anxious about her boss's reaction. Brenda slowly closed the backpack and handed it back to Fernanda. That afternoon, in front of Fernanda's modest and somewhat rundown house, everything was very quiet. Only the sound of the wind whispering through the nearby trees broke the silence. Brenda's car was parked by the curb, and the two women stood beside it, enveloped in a tense atmosphere. Brenda broke the silence, holding Fernanda's backpack in one hand. Fernanda, I need to apologize to you. I was rude and suspected you without having all the facts. I'm really sorry for that, she said, her tone laden with sincere regret. Fernanda, visibly relieved by the apology, responded in a trembling voice. I'm sorry too, Brenda. I was taking food from the cafe secretly, and I was embarrassed to ask. I only took the leftovers that customers didn't eat. I knew taking freshly prepared food would be wrong, like stealing from you. Brenda listened attentively, and the pain in Fernanda's voice only reinforced how badly she felt about the situation. I understand, Fernanda, and I'm sorry you felt you needed to do that. You shouldn't have to choose between asking for help and going without, Brenda said. Fernanda looked down, embarrassed. As for the university, I left some time ago because I could no longer afford it. I wanted to tell you, but don't worry about that now, Brenda interrupted gently. What's important is that we take care of this. Please get back in the car. I have a plan that might help. Hesitant, Fernanda got into the car, still uncertain about Brenda's intentions. As Brenda drove, Fernanda couldn't help but ask, Brenda, have you changed your mind about everything? Are we going to the police station? Sensing the fear in her voice, Brenda let out a small laugh to lighten the mood. No, Fernanda, nothing like that. We're going to the supermarket. I'm going to make sure you don't have to worry about food for a long time. As soon as they arrived at the supermarket, Brenda grabbed 3 shopping carts and handed them to Fernanda. Fill these carts with everything you need. I insist that you don't leave here without at least 3 full carts, she said with an encouraging smile. Fernanda, still embarrassed but moved by Brenda's generosity, began to fill the carts. Together, they selected a variety of healthy foods and other necessities, and time passed quickly as they chatted about different products and their preferences. After a long period of shopping, they finally loaded the bags full of groceries back into the car. Brenda then drove Fernanda back home, helping her carry all the groceries inside. I don't know how to thank you, Brenda. This means so much to me, Fernanda said, clearly emotional about the unexpected help. Brenda smiled warmly. You don't have to thank me. I just want you to know you can count on me. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again, she said. The simplicity of Fernanda's home reflected her careful nature, with signs of wear but everything clean and organized. The bags full of groceries promised much-needed nutrition and ease. The two women stood together, now united by understanding and mutual respect, ready to move forward from a difficult chapter. Brenda noticed a couple of elderly people sitting in wheelchairs in a corner of the living room, their faces lighting up with smiles when they saw Fernanda. The young woman quickly introduced them. "These are my grandparents," she said in a soft, loving tone. "They depend on me for many things." Fernanda's grandparents greeted Brenda, their eyes shining with gratitude and affection. Brenda approached them, greeting them warmly, deeply moved by the familial scene filled with love and challenges. At that moment, a woman emerged from the kitchen, leaning on a crutch. She appeared to be around 40 years old and was missing one leg. Fernanda made the introductions. "This is Lucia, our neighbor. She takes care of my grandparents while I'm at work." Lucia, with a welcoming smile, extended her hand to Brenda. "It's a pleasure to meet you," she said, and Brenda shook her hand, feeling a wave of respect for the woman. "Fernanda tells me you've been a great help here," Brenda commented, looking at Lucia with appreciation. "I do what I can," Lucia responded modestly. "Fernanda has been an angel to us. The leftovers she brings from the cafe help a lot, though I'm glad you brought something even better today." The conversation flowed naturally, with everyone expressing their gratitude for the groceries Brenda had provided. Fernanda's grandparents and Lucia shared that the leftover food was not always ideal, but it helped during tough times. While they conversed, Lucia briefly disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a plate of cake. "I hope you like it," she said, offering a piece to Brenda. As Brenda tasted the cake, she closed her eyes, savoring the texture and flavor. "This is divine," she exclaimed, surprised. "Where did you buy it?" Lucia laughed. "I made it myself. Cooking has always been my passion." Fascinated, Brenda encouraged Lucia to share more about her culinary skills. Lucia began to describe the recipe and the process of making the cake, her passion evident in every detail she shared. Growing more and more impressed, Brenda suggested, "Have you thought about selling your cakes? They're truly exceptional." Lucia shook her head. "I'd love to, but I don't have the means to start something like that on my own." The conversation between the two women flourished, with Brenda seeing potential not just in Lucia's cake, but in Lucia herself as an entrepreneur who just needed an opportunity. Ideas began to form in Brenda's mind, thinking of ways to help Lucia transform her passion into a real possibility. That serene afternoon, Brenda and Fernanda found themselves outside Fernanda's home, having shared revealing moments. As they prepared to say goodbye, Brenda touched on a subject that had been troubling her. "Fernanda, before we go, I need to tell you something serious. We've discovered that money is being diverted from the cafe," Brenda said, looking directly into Fernanda's eyes, searching for any sign of prior knowledge about the matter. Fernanda's expression turned sad and worried. "That's terrible, Brenda. I'll do everything I can to help find out who's behind this," she responded sincerely. Brenda thanked her, and after a friendly goodbye, she got into her car. A few minutes after leaving, her phone rang. It was Clara. "Brenda, was it Fernanda?" Clara asked anxiously. Brenda felt a stab of frustration. "It wasn't her, Clara. I already told you that," Brenda replied firmly. Clara, however, seemed unconvinced. "But Brenda, the money was going to an account in her name. How do you explain that?" she pressed. "I'll explain it," Brenda replied with determination, ending the conversation to think more clearly. A month had passed since the incident, and although Brenda continued her daily routine at the cafe, she secretly worked on an audacious plan. She replaced all the credit card machines in the establishment and redirected all transaction money to Fernanda's account as a trap to catch the real culprit. It was a test of her own making to confirm Fernanda's innocence, in whom she fully trusted. Fernanda was aware of the plan and agreed to return all the money once the true thief was identified. One day, during this tense waiting period, Samuel, Brenda's son and co-administrator of the cafe, burst into her office, visibly agitated. "Mom, Fernanda is stealing money from the cafe," he exclaimed, almost shouting, his face pale with distress. Brenda, calm in the face of her son's accusation, looked at him and asked, "How do you know that, Samuel?" Samuel hesitated, his confusion evident. "Son, only 3 people knew what I did. Me, the manager, And Fernanda herself, Brenda continued, her voice firm. It was you, wasn't it, Samuel? When I redirected all the money to her account, you realized it wasn't going to the fake account you created in Fernanda's name, and then you decided to accuse her to divert suspicion from yourself. Samuel remained silent, unable to defend himself. The truth of Brenda's words was undeniable. Finally, he lowered his gaze, overwhelmed by guilt and the reality of his actions. Despite the shock and sadness of discovering that her own son was behind the scheme, Brenda remained composed. She knew she needed to handle the situation with fairness despite the pain of seeing her son involved in such a betrayal. The silence between mother and son was heavy, laden with the weight of the newly revealed truth and the consequences that would follow. Brenda knew that the upcoming decisions would be crucial not only for the integrity of her business, but also for her relationship with Samuel. On that cold and somber night, the growing tension in Brenda's family finally reached its breaking point. The last few months had been difficult for her, dealing with financial problems in the cafe that seemed inexplicable. Brenda, however, could never have imagined that her own son, Samuel, and a friend of his were behind the draining of resources from her establishment. Samuel and his friend, a skilled hacker, had started by taking small amounts of money from the cash register. Initially, it was just bills that could easily be hidden among the restaurant's regular expenses. But as the use of cash decreased and credit card transactions became more frequent, they adapted. Samuel's hacker friend developed a method to divert amounts of money from credit card transactions to a fake account they created in Fernanda's name, the dedicated cafe employee. The situation worsened when an employee, noticing discrepancies in the accounts, threatened to expose everything. Desperate to keep his secret safe, Samuel saw no other option but to fire the employee, supposedly for incompetence, but in reality, to silence the case. Samuel and his friend's plan seemed infallible. If they were ever discovered, they could simply blame Fernanda, who knew nothing about the account in her name. However, Samuel's reckless spending on parties and luxuries began to increase, causing significant damage to the cafe. Brenda, after discovering the truth, was devastated. She couldn't believe her own son was involved in something so despicable. Alone at home, she wept as she pondered what to do. The decision was difficult, but she knew she couldn't let the situation continue. With a heavy heart, Brenda called Samuel. "Samuel, you need to leave the house. I'm blocking all your cards," she said with a firm voice that concealed deep sadness. When Samuel arrived home, he found his belongings packed in a suitcase outside. He tried to open the door but couldn't. Brenda had changed the lock. Desperate, Samuel pleaded to enter, to explain, to ask for forgiveness. "Mom, please, I can explain," he shouted from the door. "There's nothing you can say that will change what you did." "Samuel," Brenda replied, her voice breaking with the weight of her pain and disappointment. "This is all I can do for you now," Brenda responded, her voice muffled through the closed door. Inside the suitcase, Samuel found only a symbolic amount of money, enough to ensure he wouldn't starve, but nothing more. It was the last bit of assistance Brenda was willing to offer the son who had so gravely betrayed her trust. With no options and no more tears to shed, Samuel took the suitcase and left. He wandered the streets, the reality of his actions finally sinking in. The weight of his mistakes, the loss of his family, and the uncertain future were now his only companions as he walked under the cold city lights. In the days following the painful decision to expel Samuel from home, Brenda's life took a turn toward renewal and hope. As she walked through the cozy, aromatic confines of Kent Cafe, which had been the stage of so many dramas and was now brimming with new beginnings, she was approached by a customer who seemed particularly delighted with a part of the menu. "Your pastries are incredible. How do you make them so special?" the customer praised, his eyes sparkling with a mix of curiosity and delight. Brenda smiled, grateful for the recognition. "Thank you. I'm planning to open an establishment dedicated solely to pastries soon," she revealed, her eyes following Lucia, who was chatting animatedly with some of the cooks. "What's the secret then?" the customer asked, following Brenda's gaze. "There she is," Brenda said, pointing to Lucia, now moving with ease thanks to the prosthesis Brenda had purchased for her. "Lucia isn't just an employee. She'll be my partner in the new venture," Brenda explained. The customer expressed his admiration and congratulations before leaving, mentioning his excitement for the future bakery's opening. Climbing the stairs to her office, Brenda found Fernanda and a recently hired employee who had taken Samuel's place. Fernanda, now in an apprentice position, was preparing to co-manage the cafe soon. Although nervous, her expression also showed enthusiasm and gratitude. With a better salary, she had returned to university and rented a more comfortable house to live with her grandparents and a caregiver. As Brenda watched Fernanda grow in her new role, she couldn't help but worry about Samuel. Despite his actions, she still felt the need to protect her son somehow. That's why she hired a detective to stay informed about his whereabouts. Samuel, for his part, faced a new reality. He had found a simple job that paid only minimum wage. It was little, but enough to share a small house with 4 other individuals. Brenda knew deep down that her son needed to go through these hardships to truly learn the value of the things he once took for granted. This phase of transition for Brenda was marked by a complex mix of emotions. While seeing Fernanda flourish and Lucia embark on a new journey as an entrepreneur, the concern for Samuel still cast a shadow on her heart. However, she recognized that this was a necessary part of Samuel's growth, a hard but essential path. Amid the documents and plans scattered around the office, Brenda felt increasingly confident that she was building something good, not just for herself but for the people around her whom she had come to call family. As she prepared Fernanda for a leadership position and worked on the plans for the new bakery with Lucia, Brenda realized that despite the challenges and pains of the past, she was paving the way for a promising future. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.